Hello everyone and welcome to round 1 of the 500 horsepower tournament. I don't have anything else to say, so let's get into it. A total of 40 contestants entered, but only one can win. Many rounds and many races on a lot of different circuits, each presenting a distinct challenge. All to determine who the best 500 horsepower car is. Well, at least out of the 40 people that entered. So, for the grand opening, we're gonna be racing 2 laps around the absolute classic that is Grand Valley. There's 5 heats of 8, and basically whoever finishes last in each race is eliminated. And so, with that being said, let's get into the races. So, for the first heat, we have Jomnas Jomnani, Buck Sargent, Howard Hughes, Fancy Wreck, A-Lord GT, Thunderstorm Gaming, Interrupting Octopus, Marionette, and Halo. And so, let the racing begin. Off the start line as Halo manages to instantly overtake Octopus. As the Toyota Tundra kinda blocks everybody behind it, but not for long, as Halo, A-Lord, Thunderstorm, and Buck all managed to break through. And now the Firebird is leading the race with Thunderstorm's M3 and Halo's 991 right behind it. While Octopus and Fancy Wreck also managed to overtake the truck, just not as quickly as the others. And hell, Marionette is still being cock-blocked. And while that's happening, Fancy Wreck's Beeble Bus is trying to catch back up to the others. And same for Octopus, as he is trying to catch up to A-Lord and maybe even overtake him as well. Anyways, Thunderstorm Gaming has been overtaken by Halo, who is currently being cock-blocked by Buck Sargent. And now heading into the technical part of the circuit, will he be able to keep the first place? We're about to find out. As Halo is trying his best to not get stuck behind him. And Interrupting Octopus is looking for an opportunity to catch up to A-Lord, can't quite find it though, as Thunderstorm Gaming is managing to keep up with Buck Sargent and Halo no problem. And speaking of which, Halo has found an overtaking opportunity on this corner. And he is now in first place. And as they make it to the Grand Valley Bridge, Thunderstorm Gaming in the M3 GTR is managing to catch up to the Firebird no problem. Meanwhile, Interrupting Octopus has managed to catch up to A-Lord. But unfortunately, he did not find an overtaking opportunity. But someone who did was Marionette, as he finally managed to overtake Jomnas' truck. And now the Stealth Model 911 is trying to catch up to Fancy Wreck's Beeble Bus. And as they all make it to the speed section, Thunderstorm Gaming continues to try to catch up to Buck Sargent. And same can be said about Interrupting Octopus, who's still yet to overtake A-Lord. And so, here comes Thunderstorm Gaming's opportunity to overtake the Firebird. And so, Thunderstorm Gaming lines himself up for the overtake as the second lap begins. Unfortunately, he didn't pull it off just yet, as the braking zone comes and Interrupting Octopus overtakes A-Lord for a moment. But A-Lord manages to easily overtake him back, as the battle between the two continues. Meanwhile in the back, the Samba Bus has been overtaken by Marionette, who's now off to catch up to Octo. Anyways, A-Lord in the Greddy Fuguzette managed to build a gap over the MX-5 quite quickly, surprisingly, allowing him to stay in 4th place for a bit longer. And while he is at it, he also managed to catch up to Thunderstorm Gaming, who is still being cock-blocked by Buck Sargent. But as they both head into the technical part of the track, things might just take a turn. And here they go across the sharp turn, as Marionette managed to catch up to Octo. This is getting interesting, most of the lineup is pretty close together right now. And then there's Halo, who is very far ahead of everyone else. And so they head off into the tunnel, as the grid order itself is not that much changed honestly. But something that did change in the span of like few corners is Marionette not being in Octo's overtaking distance anymore. Instead, Octopus is now in overtaking distance of the Greddy Fuguzette. And as everybody is on the Grand Valley Bridge now, Thunderstorm Gaming is trying to overtake Buck Sargent yet again. He makes it to the upcoming tunnel, and just like that, Thunderstorm Gaming takes second place. And now Buck Sargent has to deal with not being overtaken by the Greddy Fugu or the MX-5, as we have now made it to the final section of the track. Unfortunately, the back end of the Firebird spins, allowing both A-Lord and Octopus to catch up to him. And now it is down to the home stretch as Thunderstorm Gaming zooms off into the distance. And across the tunnel he goes into the finish line as Octopus manages to overtake the Firebird. And the results are, Halo finishes first, Thunderstorm Gaming's right behind in second, Octopus is third, A-Lord GT does a last-second overtake on Buck, taking 4th place, while he places 5th, Marionette is 6th, and Fancy Wreck is 7th. Meaning that Jonas Jomnani in the Toyota Tundra is in 8th place, therefore he's eliminated. For the second heat, we have Wise, SVTVP, Freddy Fazbear, Mortso, Pin, Xolstis, Mojave King, and Tom the Cat. So let's see how everyone performs. And so we head off as most of the grid seems to be pretty evenly matched. And Wise in the mighty Alphard is trying to cock-block everyone behind him. And from what I can tell, it seems to be working. But unfortunately not for long, as both SVTVP and Martso overtake him in no time. And following them both as they go down the hill is the Vacuum Cleaner and Devil Z, as Tom the Cat and Xolstis also had no problems with overtaking the Alphard. And as they all now make it to the braking zone, Pin in the Hippie also manages to overtake it, leaving Mojave King and Freddy Fazbear as the only ones that are still stuck behind the Alphard. But even that doesn't last very long, as Wise goes too far on the outside, giving Mojave King an opportunity to overtake him. Which Mojave King takes that opportunity, understandably so. And Pin managed to overtake Xolstis, taking 4th away from him. And Martso also took 1st place away from SVTVP, as the Jaguar E-Type proves to be pretty quick. And as they make it through these corners, SVTVP now has to deal with not getting overtaken by Tom the Cat. And while they make it to the Grand Valley Bridge, Martso in the meantime managed to build a pretty respectable lead over everyone else. And so they make it to the tunnel as SVTVP is in Tom the Cat's overtaking distance. While in the back, Mojave King already managed to catch up to Xolstis. Not only that, but Freddy Fazbear has overtaken Wise as well. But given he was the last one to do so, he now has a ton of ground to cover. Anyways, they now all make it to the speed section as Mojave King is trying his best to overtake Xolstis. And this narrow bridge isn't really helping him. But that's okay, as we are now on the straight, where he will definitely have a much higher chance of passing. Same, however, cannot be said about Tom the Cat, as the Tesla's top speed is pretty low. And so, the second lap is starting off with Mojave King overtaking Xolstis, while the Hippie caught up to the Vacuum Cleaner due to it topping out early. But thankfully for Tom the Cat, it didn't end up actually overtaking him. And as we go down the hill, Mojave King is now catching up to the Hippie, or at least trying to catch up to the Hippie, as Xolstis is kinda getting left behind due to being slower than the others, and Pin isn't giving up easily. And as Tom the Cat tries to overtake SVTVP, he ends up smacking into him instead. And to the surprise of many, Martso is still leading the race, while the Tesla is in the C7 Corvette's overtaking distance. And as for Mojave King, I can clearly tell he made some progress in catching up to the Hippie. And the Devil Z is trying everything to catch back up to the Countach, but it doesn't really look like it's succeeding right now. And so they all make it through the tunnel on this corner, where, surprisingly, absolutely nothing changes. SVT is still holding off Tom the Cat, and Mojave King managed to catch up to the Hippie. and also manages to reach overtaking distance as they all make it to the Grand Valley Bridge. As for Freddy Fazbear, unfortunately it doesn't look like he managed to catch back up. In the meantime, it looks like Martzo managed to actually gap SVTVP. And we are now reaching the home stretch of the race as Mojave King overtakes the Hippie. And I guess now he is trying to make sure he does not get overtaken back, as he, alongside everybody else, make it to the final sector of the track. It all comes down to this. Mojave King managed to gap Pin as he catches up to Tom the Cat, while Tom the Cat himself now has one last opportunity to overtake SVTVP. Unfortunately, I don't think he's gonna be able to pull it off. And as they all made it to the straight, the finishing order seems to be finalized. Martzo makes it to the finish line in first, SVTVP is second, Tom the Cat is third, Mojave King is fourth, the Hippie is fifth, the Devil Z is sixth, and Freddy Fazbear is seventh, as he managed to successfully gap Wise in the mighty Toyota Alphard, meaning that as a result, he is now eliminated. For the third heat, we have Andrew Hussey's real vehicle, Private First Class Chuck Patterson, Reagan, Sophie, Ukester, me, Virgil, and Ferrari. We're starting off strong with race 3, as everybody manages to overtake the ambulance in the first 10 seconds, which honestly is not really surprising. And now we head off into the first corner as Ukester and Virgil got cock-blocked by the ambulance for a bit. Going into the downhill, Ferrari is failing to overtake Chuck Patterson, while my Porsche and Reagan's Impreza managed to build an early lead over everyone else, as we are both currently battling for first place. And that apparently was the shortest battle in history, as the braking zone comes and I managed to overtake Reagan. This was not set up, by the way. I really wasn't expecting myself to get such a good run. And while I try to build up a gap over Reagan, Private First Class Chuck Patterson is doing really good right now. And after catching up to her on this sharp corner, Virgil easily overtakes Sophie, leaving Ukester as the only one that's stuck behind her now. And so, Ferrari makes it across this corner as he fails to reach overtaking distance of the C2 Corvette. But that's totally fine. We are only halfway through the first lap so far. Anyways, it looks like Virgil managed to catch up to Ferrari, who's getting cock-blocked by the C2 Corvette. And things are getting interesting between these three as we make it to the Grand Valley Bridge. And they speed off as Ferrari gets gapped by Chuck Patterson. And despite Ferrari being in Virgil's overtaking distance, Virgil didn't actually end up overtaking him. Across this corner and into the final sector as Sophie somehow managed to catch back up to Virgil. And she is still surprisingly in 6th place as Ukester has not overtaken her yet. Anyways, we're gonna see some massive changes as they all make it to the speed section. And speaking of which, Virgil has managed to overtake Ferrari. And now he is trying to make a pass on Private First Class Chuck Patterson. Meanwhile, Ferrari in the C8 Corvette comes completely out of nowhere, overtaking both Virgil and Chuck Patterson on the straight. And now is trying to catch up to Reagan on the second lap, who has a pretty respectable lead over Ferrari. And I'm pretty much just chilling in first place as my 996 built a huge lead over everyone else. Meanwhile, Ferrari on the first corner alone managed to easily catch up to Reagan by a lot. And following him is Virgil and Chuck Patterson, as Sophie is managing to catch up to him surprisingly, while poor Ukester did not have a single overtaking opportunity besides overtaking the high medic at the beginning. Meanwhile in the front, Ferrari is being cock-blocked by Reagan, which allowed Virgil to catch back up to him again. And Reagan manages to gap Ferrari as he makes it to the sharp corner. But I'm pretty sure Ferrari should easily be able to gain that time back, as he reaches overtaking distance on the set corner. And while that is happening, Chuck, Sophie, and Ukester are also pretty close together. But anyways, both Virgil and Ferrari make it into this corner, as Ferrari manages to build up enough speed to try to overtake Reagan on the inside. And fortunately, his plan worked, allowing Ferrari to take second place on this corner, also giving Virgil an opportunity to overtake as he makes it to the Grand Valley Bridge, while Reagan falls down to 4th. And so, as they both make it to the final sector of the track, they have a guaranteed podium under their belt. In the meantime, Sophie manages to catch up to Chuck Patterson, and as she makes it to the final corner before the straight, she manages to actually overtake him. And after a bit of a switcheroo, the C2 Corvette has been overtaken. And during all of that, not a single overtaking opportunity came for Ukester. And so, everybody speeds off into the straight, as the finishing order seems to be pretty set in stone now. As I cross the finish line first, Ferrari 2nd, Virgil's 3rd, Reagan's 4th, Sophie is 5th, Private First Class Chuck Patterson 6th, and Ukester 7th. Which means that Andrew Hussey's real vehicle and her Toyota Ambulance High Medic are unsurprisingly out of the tournament. For the 4th heat, we have Terrenator, Terrified Hockeyzard, 454 HO Bowtie, Lighter, W12, Oatmeal Skukolati on the road again, Mojave Queen, and Zetsu. And so we now head off. Right away, you can already see Terrenator building up a gap over everyone else in the funny Fiat. And following him as he makes it to the first corner is W12. Unfortunately, the Fiat goes wide, causing him to fall down to 5th place. And now W12 is leading the race as he is trying to hold off Oatmeal Skukolati. And as they make it through the downhill, Mojave Queen tries to catch up to Bowtie, while Lighter has managed to overtake Terrenator as well. And so, as the Fiat 500 makes it to this corner, it goes wide again, allowing Terrified Hockeyzard and Zetsu to make a pass. And so, they now make it into the sharp corner as Zetsu tries to overtake Terra. As for Terrenator, and while he's trying to recover, everybody else has already made it to the Grand Valley Bridge, where we can confirm that Zetsu was actually successful in overtaking Terra. And same can be said about Lighter overtaking Bowtie as they make it through this tunnel. And as you can clearly tell, W12 failed at holding off Oatmeal Skukolati, leaving him and Mojave Queen in a battle for first place. And a really intense one at that. Across the bridge they go and into the tunnel, which is where you can see how evenly matched these two are in terms of performance. And as they are on the straight now, it's only a matter of who has better acceleration. And as you can see, Mojave Queen is trying to pull an overtake on the GT40. And the intense battle continues into the second lap, where you can see Mojave Queen trying to pull an overtake on the braking zone. But it looks like Oatmeal Skukolati doesn't seem to be giving up so easily. Meanwhile, W12 is just chilling on the podium as Lighter now has to deal with not being overtaken by Zetsu. And it looks like Bowtie and Terra, who Terrenator may or may not catch back up to, are getting left behind. Anyways, it looks like Lighter is actually succeeding at holding off Zetsu at the moment. And while the Audi TT is proving to be dominant, the battle between Mojave Queen and Oatmeal Skukolati only gets more intense, as they make it past the spot where Terrenator crashed and into the technical part of the circuit, as it looks like Oatmeal Skukolati is still successfully holding off Mojave Queen from overtaking him. And so they make it across this corner into the next one as Mojave Queen tries to find an overtaking opportunity yet again. While further back, I know it may not seem like it, but Leiter actually managed to catch up to W12 a bit. And yes, he is still successfully holding off the Vision GT. But that might just change as they are now on the Grand Valley Bridge. In the meantime, these two are still evenly matched, and it's all gonna come down to the last sector of the track. And so these three make it to the tunnel as Zetsu tries to overtake Leiter and succeeds this time. And now he is heading towards the Audi TT. But just so I'm not dragging things out for too long, it was an intense battle between the two, but Oatmeal Skukolati comes out on top. With Mojave Queen settling for second, W12 successfully holding off Zetsu, claiming third place, while Zetsu himself gets fourth place, Leiter gets fifth. 454 HO Bowtie is in sixth place, and it looks like the last safe spot in this race goes to Terrified Hockeyzard, which means that Terrenator in the funny Fiat 500 is out. For the fifth heat, we have Zeep Sheep, Brett Fox, Rosie Miranto, Jakubek, Max Verstappen, Arcade Charles Leclerc, and Julie Canotto. Off the start line they go, and we can instantly see Brett Fox overtaking Zeep Sheep before the first corner even comes around. And following them as they do make it to the first corner is Jakubek, as everybody else seems to be stuck in traffic. But unfortunately for them, that pileup in the back did not last very long, as Charles Leclerc is now off to catch up to Jakubek. And Rosie Miranto goes too far on the outside of the previous corner, allowing everyone to overtake him. Now Max Verstappen makes it into the braking zone as he, alongside Arcade and Charles Leclerc, are trying to catch up to and overtake Jakubek. But unfortunately, they don't really seem to be succeeding at that. Meanwhile, Zeep Sheep did not take Brett Fox overtaking him kindly, and he overtook the focus back on this corner. And just like that, for I think the first time ever, Zeep Sheep is in the lead. I guess he really wasn't lying about taking this one seriously. But enough of going off topic, Jakubek has actually managed to gap Arcade and Charles Leclerc. And Julie Canotto used this opportunity to try to overtake both. Also, it looks like Rosie Miranto managed to catch back up to Max Verstappen, and now they are battling against each other. However, as they both make it to the Grand Valley Bridge, it looks like Max Verstappen comes out on top. And as they are now driving towards the tunnel, Julie Canotto uses that opportunity to try to overtake Jakubek, whose Beetle doesn't really look like it's as dominant as it would be in GT4. And while everybody's being blocked by Jakubek, both Brett Fox and Zeep Sheep used that opportunity to build up a respectable gap over the others. But will that gap be enough? We're about to find out on the straight, as everybody seems to be pretty even going over the bridge. But now they have reached the straight as Charles Leclerc and Julie Canotto are attempting to overtake Jakubek. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Charles Leclerc be able to do it. And as the second lap begun just now, things are going to get a lot more interesting. On the braking zone, Zeep Sheep gaps Brett Fox and Julie Canotto caught up to Jakubek. And now that the downhill is up ahead, Julie Canotto uses that opportunity to overtake him. And it also looks like Rosie Miranto got gapped by Max Verstappen. And on the downhill, it looks like Charles Leclerc and the F40 caught up to the Beetle. As for Julie Canotto, he just so casually managed to overtake Brett Fox and is now trying to take first away from Zeep Sheep. And so, into the technical part they go as Charles Leclerc is now in Jakubek's overtaking distance. But given these are the sharp corners, the F40 is not 100% guaranteed to overtake. Either way, that does not stop Charles Leclerc from finding an overtaking opportunity. And following Charles Leclerc is Arcade in the Roof RGT, as he also takes the exact same overtaking opportunity. leaving Max Verstappen and Rossi Miranto as the only ones stuck behind him now. Meanwhile in the front, Zeep Sheep is holding off Julie Canotto as they both make it to the Grand Valley Bridge. In the meantime, it looks like Max Verstappen is trying to overtake Jakubek on the said bridge. And so everybody speeds off as Julie Canotto manages to actually take first place away from Zeep Sheep. But still, it's really impressive that Zeep Sheep was able to take the first place for this long in the race. And as the speed section comes around, this is gonna be the perfect opportunity for Charles Leclerc to take the podium away from Brett Fox. While it looks like Jakubek and Max Verstappen are having a switcheroo. And now everything comes down to the final section. Let's see what's gonna happen here. Across this corner they go and into the tunnel. And now it's just a race to the finish line on the straight between everyone. And it looks like Julie Canotto gets first, while Zeep Sheep and Charles Leclerc get their best placements yet. Brett Fox is 4th, RK Adley's 5th, Jakubek 6th, and Max Verstappen takes the last safe spot. Meaning that Rossi Miranto in 8th place is facing an unexpected first round elimination. And that's about it for round 1. This video really took me a lot of effort to make, so if you enjoyed it, which I know you did, like the video. And maybe even consider subscribing, I would really appreciate it. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in round 2.